Hi, Bill here. I'd like to talk about pawn formations where two sets of pawns are being exchanged. Okay, so here we have no centre pawns at all. What tends to happen is the more open the position and the less pawns in the centre, the more important piece play is and the more weakening pawn moves are. So here we've got two open files. So we add some white pieces to this setup. Naturally, the rooks will go to the open files. Makes sense the castle queen side because the queen's rook will immediately go to the open file, but the king's also quite safe on the king side. Knights are on the best squares. The queen's out here. This happens in a line in the Petrov defence. These two bishops are quite aggressive, but they could also be on other squares. Now, this time, the C and the D pawns have been swapped off. So we add some pieces. So now the two rooks have gone to the two files that are open for white. Knights are on the best squares. This bishop's fan shadowed. Queens, note the queen's on a square where it's hard to attack. It's not on an open file. And white's castle king side, it's going to be safer there than on the queen side. So now I've got a classic isolated queen pawn position. So this is a weak pawn. The squares in front of it are weak, and the strong squares for black. I've got a single open C file. So white king will definitely be safer on the king side, so will the black king. In general, white will want to avoid exchanges and play to attack in the middle game, especially to attack the king, as his pieces will be more active. And black may well go for an endgame. Though this may of course change into other pawn structures. So I've added some white pieces. So rooks lined up, helping to defend the D pawn eventually. Knights are on the best squares. This bishop's aggressively posted, hitting the H pawn on the king side. Queen's off the C file. So square where it can swing to the king side quickly. And this bishop's on F good, or sometimes it's on G5, hitting a knight. Sometimes we've got an isolated queen pawn position where black has fan shadowed, which gives black some advantages. One is the bishop will be attacking the weak pawn. Another one is a fan shadow king position tends to be more difficult to attack with pieces, but it's more vulnerable to a pawn storm. But it's probably pretty unlikely white will castle queen side because his king's a bit open over here, so the pawn storm is unlikely. So this can be a good setup against an isolated queen pawn. Now we've got another position which can arise if black has captured a piece from E6 to D5. So now both sides have got weak pawns. There's two open files. Now this is another formation that can happen if the white pawn on D4 has captured a black piece on E5. Might particularly happen if white has played knight E5 and black has exchanged knights, for example. This tends to help white because no longer is there a weak pawn, and by moving forwards, this pawn helps to gain space. White's got a strong point here, an outpost, potentially for knight or bishop, and he's got a nice space advantage on the king side, which gives him attacking chances if the black king is over here. So now I've got an isolated queen pawn, but this time instead of no C pawn and black having an E pawn, the black E pawn is missing and black has a C pawn. So first thing is often the black queen bishop can come out, which cuts down the white's attacking chances. Okay, and that same formation may turn into this one again. So here's a formation where two pawns have been exchanged. This may happen from the Grunfeld defence or some defences of the Queen's Gambit. So white's got the classical pawn centre, so white has more space. He will tend to keep the pieces on and play to attack the king, whereas that's an isolated pawn. Black has a queenside pawn majority, So black might aim to go for an endgame. Okay, so now this is a position where white has the so-called hanging pawns. So white's got an isolated pawn here. Hard to attack though because it's near the edge of the board and it's not on an open file. So these pawns are a bit of a paradox. They control lots of squares, control a lot of space, they occupy a lot of space, but they can't be defended by a pawn unless if one moves, the other one becomes a backward pawn. If that one moves, that one becomes backward. So they're very double-edged. So in general with hanging pawns, the side with the hanging pawns will keep the pieces on the board and play to attack. The other side will tend to swap pieces and play for the endgame. So that's a rule of all pawn structures. If you have a better pawn structure and it's equal material, you play for the endgame. Otherwise, you don't. Okay, so here's a plausible setup with the hanging pawns. So bishop's being shadowed. This is on the aggressive square. Knights are on natural squares. The king's on the safest side of the board. Now, the rooks are in the centre because at some stage white might throw in d5, opening up the bishop and possibly the two central files as well. So white's potentially ready to attack the king side. Okay, so this time white's got hanging pawns in the centre. So this can arise in some lines of the Queen's Gambit. So white's got two half-open files, and this one could be particularly good because the black king might be over here. So black can put pressure on these, so it's going to be a case of whether being tied down to defend these is worse than having the extra space. So white will play to keep black constrained and play to attack. So now we're back to this formation again. So now we've got the F file opened and the C file. So it's two open files. Both sides have got backward pawns. So white has more space, particularly on the king side. And as they say, you tend to attack in the direction your central pawn chain is heading. And this is the mirror image of the previous one, so two open files, and both sides have got backward pawns. And that's the end of the section. So that was just some ideas about pawn formations when there have been two sets of pawn exchanges. Of course, there are many more. Okay, so thank you for watching.